Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Check Me Out. And this is episode 3. And this is what I'm going to say a pivotal episode in this, because these are the things we're getting all excited about building a brand and designing this wonderful, amazing product. And now we're going to bring you back down to earth. And we really need you to look at these important things as well, because the other side to having this beautiful, amazing product that everyone's going to love is the commercial side of things. And then there's no other person I'd rather talk to about the commercial side of FMCG than Janine from PitchFork. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
All things numbers and sales and spreadsheets.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you're excited about that stuff, because I was the one that was drawing squares and colors in my maths book when I was at school. So I'm certainly not the person to talk numbers, but your business fits beautifully beside mine, because while we're thinking about how the packaging should look, there's a whole lot of other things that go with that, like the price point and all that. And that's going to affect, how your packaging looks. Yeah. So before we get into all of that, Janine, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what it is you do with PitchFork?
So my background is 20-something years working with food, beverage, packaged goods products across New Zealand and selling in through Asia, US and Australia. And I describe myself as having a squiggly career. So I've worked across sales, marketing, and really the focus is taking everything I've learned from working with big businesses and helping level the playing field for those ambitious startups and small businesses that really want to foot it, I guess, in the big leagues of retail.
Awesome. Oh, that's great to hear. And what is it that you, with PitchFork, with your business, I guess you started that out as being and wanting to help these smaller businesses, get in with the big guys?
So where it came from was actually when I was working as a retailer, and I had a lot of the small suppliers come and see me, and I could see where they were falling over or where things just weren't quite hitting the mark. And I wanted to share my knowledge, give them a hand, and actually teach them some of the simple things, because often it's not as complicated as people feel, and help give them really practical tools. So that's why through PitchFork and through Retail Rookie, I just have a whole lot of free guides, publishing all the time, because it's just, I think it's part of giving back in a sense and helping small New Zealand businesses, because I really want to see them do well.
Oh, that's awesome. And so do I. And I think it's and I've said this before, I think in when I was talking to Gary from GS1, that we live in a great market for new products. New Zealanders in particular are really receptive to trying new things in a product space, maybe not in some other areas. But and particularly with products, we are really receptive to trying new brands and new things. So if we start from the beginning, say I've got a client and she's really excited about this business it's innovative, and her family and friends have told her that's amazing, and she's like, I'm going to come and do this, and this is going to be my thing that I do from here on out. What would some of the things be if they came in, and what would you ask for from them in a commercial space to be able to actually make this product a reality?
So a couple of things. First, understanding who their target is. So do they actually know who their potential target is and what the problem is that they're trying to solve? And I was talking to someone yesterday, and they gave the example of brolly sheets. So that was a product started for children with bedwetting, and what they actually found is that their biggest market is for retirement villages and for the aged care sector. So I would say to somebody, what is the problem you're trying to solve with your product? And also ask them to get a sense of how big the market potential is. And that's where people can feel a little stuck. But it's actually just about making some basic assumptions and using some pretty simple information, like what's the population of New Zealand? There's around 5 million people. There's around 50,000 babies born each year. So starting to use information that's out there in the market to say, how big is this pie? Because that's probably the fundamental for starting a business, is saying, is this a hobby, or is there enough actual market potential in there to justify what they want to spend and invest in the product? So if they're coming to you, you want to know about the consumer and the shopper and the brand target. And I'm saying, great, how many of those people are there likely to be? Because I want them to size up that, start to think commercially about the size of the price.
Cool, absolutely. And with that, and that also has a lot of sway in how the packaging looks as well, because with branding in particular, it is if you've got a very small target market, then that's obviously going to, your packaging really needs to speak about your brand, and your packaging really needs to speak your unique selling points.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody who needs to work out what their unique selling points are?
I would always start with who the potential consumer is and think about, or ask themselves, what was the problem I was trying to solve when I came up with this idea? So usually an idea comes from yourself or from seeing someone and saying, hey, I think there's an opportunity for a drink, food, skincare, whatever. So understanding that problem, finding people in your wider area that may have that, and really getting on Google. So one of the useful places is you can just Google and say, how do people deal with this? What are they looking at? And looking at what else is out there in the market. Because the reality is, and this feels a bit harsh, is pretty much there is a product that solves every problem at the moment. What you're trying to do is to make your product the one that the consumer chooses over the thing that they already have. When we needed energy, we didn't, and before there was Red Bull and energy drinks, we probably just had a banana or something sweet. So we had an alternative. Red Bull and energy drinks just created a new way of solving that energy problem.
Yeah, that's a really, really good way of looking at it. It is there. For example, I have four skincare brands that I'm doing work for at the moment. Every single one of them is for your skin, for your face. It's got a moisturizer. It's got a cleanser. And so I've challenged each one of them to come up with a reason and saying that, why are you different? That kind of a thing. Because everybody's pain points, everybody's problem, as you say, it might be slightly different. I might have dry skin, but I might not want to use something with chemicals in it. I might have dry skin, but only certain times of the month I might have, so everybody's, it's a unique, you're going to find your niche in there. And that is, I guess a niche is another way of saying how you can solve the problem.
And there's a really good tool that I would recommend people go and look at, and you can just Google it, or we can share the link, which is about how to create a value proposition. So you start with the consumer on one side. So what do you know about them? What problems do they have? And also what emotional or social gains they may be trying to get. And that's when, probably for skincare, sometimes it's about the feeling as much as it is about what it physically does. They're like, how do I feel when I use this product? And then there's the social part, which can be the badge value of, what does it say when I consume this product that everyone can see me drinking or eating?
Yeah.
What does this look like? So that's where finding that sweet spot of what are the 2 or 3 things that you're going to be known for that are different to who else is out there in the market.
Absolutely. And say so now we've got to a point where we've worked out our value proposition and our USPs, and we've got this amazing product, and we are looking at putting it into packaging. There's a step in there that I would always say to people is really, really important, and that's working out what your pricing is.
Oh, yes, pricing, absolutely. And I would say going and having a looking at the other things that are other offers that are out there in the market, because pricing is also a function of the size of the product where it's going to be sold. So is it going to be sold on a supermarket shelf? Is it going to be sold online only? Is it going to be sold in a high-end luxury beauty store? So where is it going to sit? What is it relative to? So when it comes to pricing, skincare is a classic example. You can pay probably $5 for a moisturizer from the supermarket, or you can pay $500 for a moisturizer, a super high end. So what it does is similar, but where it's sold, what its positioning is, and what its competitor set is key in looking at pricing, and looking at also your margins that come with it as well. So that's another part. If your price doesn't give you enough margin to run a business on, then it's not a viable price. So yes, you have to work back from a really strongly push back against cost-based pricing. So there's often a belief or a sentiment that you take your costs and you double it, and that's your selling price. And reality is that's A, not going to be enough, and B, doesn't take into account you scaling and having extra costs like wholesalers or distributors that come in the mix as well. So for pricing, what's the value you offer to your target consumer? So as we talked about, getting clear on that. Where are you going to sell it? Who are you going to sell it to? And also thinking about size. So, and I know with some of your products, you don't want the serving to be so big that people, or the pack size to be so big that people only buy it once a year, or it expires before you actually get through the product. Also small that they use it up so quickly and then it's difficult for them. Like it's a pain to have to go and buy another one.
Absolutely. And that comes back to the sustainability thing as well. I have noticed that the people who have small containers are switching to slightly larger. And I don't know whether that has anything to do with the arrival of Costco, but also with the sustainability effect, where people are saying, I'm wasting too much plastic or even just cardboard here and that. So
I think I would wonder in that instance, sometimes buying a bigger container doesn't actually cost them that much more, but they might be able to charge more for their product and actually get through, get higher dollar sales. More money in the tin, as I call it.
Yes.
Awesome. Like money in
the tin. Awesome. Okay. So we've got our pricing, we're really good, and we're selling online and it's going really well. And someone comes to us and says, hey, you should go into retail. Yep. You're like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Someone said you should go into retail. I wouldn't have a clue how to go into retail. I don't know who to speak to. I don't even know where to start. What are some things that you would give to somebody who's at that point where they're going from farmers market to foodstuffs, as I like to call it?
Yep. I would get them to step back and say, where are your consumers wanting to buy your product? Not just where do they go, but where would they expect to find a product like yours? Because if we use the example of a drink, you can buy a drink at a bar, you can buy a drink at a restaurant, a service station, a dairy, and a supermarket. So a supermarket is only one of the places that you can look at. So what I encourage people to do is to sit down and say, where are all the places your consumers expect to buy? Where are all the places you could sell at? What do you know about what people are looking for, or what that competitive market's like? So they've usually been at, we've all been in a dairy, we've been into a service station, we've looked at hospitality, and think about where they want to expand in retail and why, and then pull out the spreadsheet and start to say, okay, what will that look like from here? What does your pricing look like? What does your margin look like? What does your full margin model look like?
Yeah, there are, I think, a lot of in New Zealand, because we do have that small market and the duopoly of supermarkets, is that everyone, it is the Kiwi dream of owning a product. Everybody wants to have that quarter acre paradise, and foodstuffs and Countdown are that quarter acre paradise when it comes to retail. But I think that is something that, people overlook your smaller stores or your opportunities. Like if you're a drink, there are restaurants and bars that you can look at. and smaller retails like Good For, if you have a sustainable product, or if you've got something, I mean, even Faro or somebody like that. So there's so many more opportunities where you can learn the ropes a little bit easier.
And that would be my 100% advice is not quite make the mistakes, but get all the learnings you can about retail, because it's everything from what does your supply chain look like, what does your compliance look like in terms of documentation, can you actually handle the scale of a supermarket, because going from a farmer's market to a supermarket is a massive leap, and you need to be set up operationally to make that leap. So going in, as you said, to places like Faro or Common Sense Organics or into smaller retailers is really a way for you to test not only your product, but also your own systems, because supermarket expectations are very high. And if you find, actually, I just can't deal with the overwhelm of orders, or I can't get the pricing right, or my manufacturing's not right, far better to learn that at an in-between stage than making that leap and then finding out, gosh, this really doesn't stack up for me, because that's a real challenge. And that's one of the things I want to help people, is avoid making those big commercial and financial mistakes that can really just derail. This is people we're talking about. It's not a business that's a large multinational corporate. These are small businesses. They've put the money in their house and their mortgage. They've probably taken out a loan. How can they scale without falling over?
Yeah, because there are a lot of I should say a lot of hard truths about dealing with large retailers, a lot that people don't what would be a couple of big things, like those hard truths that you want if somebody's gearing up to present they've got a category meeting coming up? What would be a couple of things that you would like to, for lack of a better word, warn people about when it comes to their very first category meeting?
They see hundreds of small suppliers with amazing stories every year. You need to have your commercials fully sorted. You need to have your back-end operations sorted. Their standards are exceptionally high. They want 95% plus of products delivered on full in time. They're not going to tolerate, any food safety or potential food issues. And it is going to cost you a lot more than you think. And that's probably the biggest thing, is go in with your eyes wide open about all the costs you need to pay for and that you're going to need to cover, because the retailer margin is only the first one. And people, I think there's an assumption that the retailer margin is everything, and reality is it's a big chunk, but you also need to pay for things like shipping, going in their DC. You need to pay for ullage, which is the term for if products go off or it gets damaged or there's stock credits. There are payment terms for them to pay you on time. There are advertising. There's discounts. So when you do a price promotion, how are you going to pay for that? There's a whole lot of other things that can feel really overwhelming. And I see people where they say, but how do I make any money? And the answer is, well, we need to look at it and say, is this the right retailer for you? And try and answer, well, how can you make money? Because it will feel overwhelming and it will feel quite scary, perhaps the size of that margin that they might take. But that's the way, to say they're a business just like you're a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is this, as a consumer, when you go into a supermarket and you just pick up a product and you beep it through the checkout and you take it home and you use it, and that's the end of the life of that product for you. There's a lot that goes into behind that, just for that product to be there. Every time I walk into a supermarket and I see one of my clients there, I'm extremely proud of them, because I know the absolute mountain that they've had to climb to be able to get into these big stores. Yeah.
And it's also probably the saying I have is retail is detail. So you need to be comfortable with dealing with a lot of detail and keeping on top of everything. So I do see that sometimes where creating new products is fun, and it's really creative, and it's, you're working with you, and you're coming up with colors and flavors and tasting it and testing it and having sample parties, and that's fantastic. But the retailer is going to say, that's great. Now, where is it going to go on shelf? What's your rate of sale looking like? How many people am I likely to sell it to? Where does your price sit? So there's a whole lot of other things that can, I just say it can bring people down, but it can be quite a reality check against. Yeah. I create it and everyone's waiting to just buy my product. And the answer is you and, there's 50 other people that also have amazing products that taste delicious and look fabulous. So what is it that's actually going to cut through for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you're here. And that's why PitchFork is such a great idea, because you are helping to use your amazing experience to actually help people have that reality check before they get to that point. Because the last thing that we want is, for me as well, the last thing I really want is for people to get so excited and come up with this, and then to have a retailer pick it apart, because that's their job. As you say, it is a business. They're here to run a business. They're not here to be your marketer. They're not here to be your babysitter of your product in store. They have 50 to 60 other staff to worry about just in their one supermarket. They've got their own family and their own business to look after. So they're not then, and the millions of other products that actually go into store. So it's up to you to look after you, and look after your business. And that's why I think, having people like yourselves and somewhat a little bit like me around to be able to, help you tell that story the right way from the beginning is really going to help you to get product success.
And that's what I think, working hand in hand with your packaging designer and with, you up front, is that you can bring them. And that's why I like working with people in the creative spaces, because you're not only creative, you're practical. You know what works in terms of bottle shapes and sizes. You understand about consumers. I've had, it's really simple little practical things that I suggest people do with packaging, like take it into the supermarket or wherever you want to sell it and try and fit it on the shelf. And if it doesn't fit on the shelf, know that that's could be quite an issue, because the supermarket's not going to move the shelf just for you.
Yeah.
As amazing as you are, they're not going to move the entire thing around just to fit your bottle that happens to be this much too high to fit there. So it's those little practical things up front that say, if the entire category's in cans and you're in glass, you really need to understand why you're going into glass, because glass is great, but glass also shatters and is a health and safety concern and is heavy and has more damage. So then you have more credits. So it's that part of working with your packaging designer and really getting to understand where you want to sell your product up front before you go and make, all those final investments or finish your beautiful design. And then the retailer says, oh, you've got a 4-pack. I wanted a 6-pack. Like, oh.
Absolutely.
I wish I'd known that.
Yeah, definitely find out all that you can, essentially, when you're starting a product business, even if you're looking at just doing e-commerce, because e-commerce is a great way to learn all of these lessons to begin with. Learn as much as you can. No question is a silly question. Especially when you've got people that you can actually ask, like the Retail Rookie resource that you've got.
And that's where I would also encourage people, back in the day, it used to be a real no-no to take a photo in a supermarket. It was like you had to go in and be really secretive and whip your little flip phone out and snap a shot. Whereas now, you can literally take photos of all of it, take a video, go into a whole lot of different stores, and then come back and sit down and say, what are the things that I noticed that are in common? What are the products that I noticed that really stand out? What is it in terms of their pricing, their positioning? A retailer wants to know that why should they delete? Because remember, they're going to have to take something out in order to put you in. You need to have a really good reason why your product should go in versus what because they've already got something on their shelf. Supermarket shelves, touch wood, as long as we're in stock, supermarket shelves are already full of products. So there's already something there, unlike e-commerce where you can add everything to your website. In a store, the shelves are already full. So you need to be really clear, what is it that you're going to bring to them that's going to make them more money and make their customers happier than what they have there already.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I think a great example is boring oat milk.
Yeah.
They are oat milk, but what they are is they are cool oat milk.
Yeah.
That you want to have that bottle in your fridge, pull it out when people come over. It's really nice. I love the plastic. I love the design is different from all the other Tetra cartons that are out there. The price point works. It's really simple for the retailer. It's 2 SKUs. They went, here's the everyday one and the barista one. So they kept their range really tight. Their packaging standout is sensational. The bottle works well from both feeling as sustainable. You can recycle it if you take the sleeve off, and aesthetically, it's really nice. It has that milk connotation of pouring it rather than non-milk in a Tetra carton.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, they tick the box not only for packaging design but also for the story they were going to the retailer with. They're like, this is our story, this is our offer, this is our price point, this is what's going to make consumers pick us up off the shelf versus, you know, all these other products that are already there.
Yeah. Awesome. And one thing we'll touch on briefly, but I think we could probably do a whole other episode about this, which we'll do later. But I wanted to touch briefly on NPD, new product development. It's very easy for people when you're in a space working, say, doing the farmers markets or doing an e-commerce. Like you say, you can have everything on e-commerce.
Yep.
When you get to that point where you go, okay, I've been doing this for a couple of years and I want to do this and I want to branch into doing this and I want to branch into doing this. And then we come to people and we say, no, stick to what you know, stick to what you're good at. So I wanted to just get your opinion a little bit about, for the people out there that have their products and are thinking about, you know, branching, taking that next leap into retail. What do we talk about when we're talking about new product development and just keeping it simple?
While I'm okay with people launching new products, my question is always why? Why do you need to launch this new product or this new line extension? What have you learned about your product that means you want to change something about it? Have you tried maximizing everywhere you could sell it? If you're taking it into a retailer, talk to them about everything you've learned about it. So if you're going to them and pitching them as with your NPD, talk to them about everything you've learned at your farmers market through reviews that you've had online. Like, be really clear in selling them the story that consumers love your product. When it comes to creating new ones, I'm not a fan of creating new products for the sake of it or because you're bored with what you already have, because actually consumers take a long time to discover products and to use them and to get used to buying them. You know, we buy them once. Am I going to remember to buy it again? Maybe, maybe not. Most of the people that buy, you know, into a category may only buy into it a couple of times a year, and it's a lot less than we think. Like, skincare is probably a classic example. You know, we don't buy moisturizer every month. We probably don't even buy it every 3 months, maybe every 6 months, depending on how often we remember to use it. And then we have to remember what we bought last time and then buy it again. So I'm hesitant on NPD as being the only lever for growth.
I think so too. I mean, sure, if you've got the one product, say you've got one product with 3 flavors and you've been doing it for 4 years, you've probably got enough feedback to understand whether that product works or whether you need to tweak it. Maybe it's maybe it's a juice and maybe you need to switch it to a powder, or maybe it's in glass and there's too much it's silage, so you need to go to a plastic. And that's a really good time to look at your product and your recipe is when you need to change something. But I don't think there's a need to create new products all the time. I do have some people who are notorious for that, but they seem to do all right out of it, so they're just lucky. But
I think the nature of the category can also determine it.
Yeah.
So things, your convenience, your foods, your treats, Whittaker's bring out new chocolates regularly because that's just part of their whole brand story.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, they won't be contributing to all their sales. That's just part of the story they have about Whittaker's, which is around innovation and creativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thinking about what it looks like. The other thing I would say to people is you will get bored of your products years before your consumers will. You will be so bored of it because you live and eat and breathe your product so closely and so intimately. Remember that for most people, what is it, 3 seconds for a decision on shelf?
Yeah.
So they're spending 3 seconds looking at it, and you've probably spent 6 months getting it to launch and designing it. So just having that little reminder to yourself that you are not the shopper and you are not the consumer, and giving people the chance to discover you and being okay with the fact that you might get bored a long, long time before your consumers will.
Yep. FMCG is a long game, whether you're just starting out or whether you're doing NPD or whether you're going into retail, expect to be here for a long time. And time.
It is. And it is about that. And it is being willing to stick with it and knowing, it's that Rachel Hunter ad. It's that good things. Oh no, it's the Mainland ad.
Oh, it's
good things take time. I was going to say Rachel Hunter, it won't happen overnight, but it will happen.
Yeah.
I think we get seduced by the stories of overnight success, and we see them on social media all the time without recognizing that those people have probably spent years coming up with a product. And when we see an overnight success, it's a bit like a one-hit wonder. You don't want to be the one-hit wonder generally. You want to actually be the sustainable business that's there for the long term. So it's a marathon.
It isn't. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for your time, Janine. I will pop up a link to Pitchfork and to Retail Rookie with this. And you've also got a nice, the 10 things to know about retail.
So if people just email me hello@pitchfork.co.nz, and then I can send out, I've got a 10 reasons why you might be struggling with launching in retail and 10 areas to focus on. So I will send that out to anyone who emails through.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Janine.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye.
See you.